Más a la historia con Molly White. Me alegro mucho de que hayas sintonizado. El podcast de hoy será en español y inglés sobre la sanción después del aborto para hispanohablantes. Esquíate de estar atento y invita a tus amigos a escuchar. Es posible que el espectáculo de hoy no sea adecuado para niños pequeños. Hello and welcome to More to the Story with Molly White. I am so glad you joined me today. And today is going to be a very special day. We're going to be talking again about how abortion hurts women and the importance of going through healing and recovery after abortion, because it does leave a wake of destruction in our path. It does hurt us, us women and men, in so many different ways. And so we invited a very special guest on our show today who's going to be talking about abortion recovery. Before we bring her on, I'm going to invite Mary Browning, my awesome co-host, to join us and come in and say hello to everyone.
Hello, Molly. It's such a privilege to be part of the show again today. Thank you for having me on.
Well,
We
I'm
do.
so glad you are. And this is really a privilege, to be able to go on the internet and talk about abortion and how it hurts women and men and how we can go through healing and the other, encourage women to choose life and expose really the propaganda, the lies of the abortion industry with the truth, so that
Yes,
young women, girls, and would not go down the path that we have gone down in our past, and to
that's right.
protect them from abortion harm. So,
That's exactly right. We do want to warn our listeners that this content will be adult only. So if you have young people around, you'll want to do something so you protect them from hearing some of the information we'll be talking about. Also, if you have abortion in your past, it's possible that some of the conversation today will trigger some pain. So we do want you to know there's hope and healing. You can find that at operation.org. And also, our guest today is going to be speaking to that specifically. And if you are Hispanic, she's going to be letting you know that you can find that in your native language, in Spanish. So thank you
amen.
all for listening.
Amen. So it is operationoutcry.org. I think you forgot the outcry in there. So,
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
operationoutcry.org does have a resource, a list of resources for abortion recovery and healing. And so you can go to that website and find those resources. There's also declarations available if you're ready to let people know that abortion hurt you, and I'm not saying people, we use these declarations to educate others. We use them to educate lawmakers that abortion does hurt women. And a lot of times our testimonies will go to the Supreme Court to defend pro-life legislation showing that, abortion does hurt women. So there's declarations on there. You can fill those out. It's like a questionnaire. You can just use your first name, you can use your full name, but you can be added to the Operation Outcry ladies. I mean, there's thousands of us that have done this, and we really have a really strong sisterhood. We really encourage each other, support each other, and become really good friends,
Yes.
during this whole process. So we invite you to do that. So go ahead.
Molly, thank you for mentioning that. It is an opportunity to provide some purpose to the pain. You
Yeah,
can also do that anonymously. So if you are aware of the pain that abortion has caused you, and you'd like to lend your voice, but don't want people to actually know that you've had an abortion, you can do that as well.
right. You
You can
can
sign. You
send it.
can.
Yeah. It,
Yes.
Anonymous. That's the word I was saying,
Yes.
thinking of, and you can do that. But we really encourage you to do that, and it really kind of starts the healing process because these questions kind of, get us to kind of ponder and think about our abortion experience, and it is part of that healing experience. So, without further ado, let's introduce our guest, Mary.
Yes.
Her name is Eileen Kuhlmann. She is over the Healing After Abortion Ministry Director of Catholic Pro Life Community. And Eileen, are you in the Dallas area?
I am.
She's in the Dallas, Texas area. And so we welcome you on the show, Eileen.
Thank
And we
you.
kind of want to talk about, how you got involved in the healing after abortion, and if your main group is the Hispanic community or open, of course, to everyone.
Perfect. You know how engineering and healing are on two different sides of the brain. I'm a former chemical engineer. And so when I left that, when it was time to be mom, then I wanted to get back into something a little bit more meaningful than adhesives. So I got into the adhesive of the heart, which I looked at the Catholic Pro-Life Community, which is a wonderful organization that has different ministries. So they help those that are suffering with the question of whether or not they should abort, and they're trying to go through that pregnancy. And then they had they had for the youth and everything else, but then they had the most beautiful of ministries, which is helping those that have been through abortion and seek healing, seek that return to God, and not really know how to do that. So I've been here 13 years, thanks be to God. It's been an absolutely beautiful journey. And I will say, I would love to speak about the Hispanics. I was raised in Guadalajara, Mexico,
Okay.
educated there as well, in a Jesuit university. So that's my heart and soul, is serving the Hispanics. But the ministry is bilingual. It serves both English and Spanish speakers. We do so equally. So we have the 6 retreats a year, English and Spanish, and then we have a whole different ministry for the men, because we can't forget the men when there comes to a decision that has led to abortion.
Amen. And we just had a live listening session last week, and
Hmm.
we had women and men share our testimonies at a church in Bedford. And
Yes,
afterwards there was a lot of people in that congregation that had no idea how abortion hurt men, and they really did not know the scope of and the breadth of how abortion hurt women as well. So it
yes,
is
yes.
it
And
is lost
go ahead.
lost parenthood hurts.
Yes, it does. And I think it took us a long time. I had a clergyman once tell me, we've forgotten the men. We have totally forgotten them. So if God had 2 that helped make a baby and 2 that lost a baby, how is it possible that healing is only for women? And I think maybe one of those people you heard was Mr. Reg Platt of Project Joseph, who works with me. So
Yes, okay.
Project Joseph was born 10 years ago. So this is our anniversary year. This ministry's been around 25 years. We're celebrating. And Project Joseph has been around 10, serving only the men. So we were the first retreat, the first healing site to offer Rachel's Vineyard retreats in Spanish in the world. That was before my time, but it has grown significantly. So now we have a 70-person volunteer base. And then at some point along the journey, someone said, we need something for men. And I said, why would we do that? They come on Rachel's Vineyard, they suffer, they heal, they rejoice. I see a lot of healing, but I had to come to learn that the men do need something special, something focused on the way they suffer their loss and the way they heal from that loss. So we developed Project Joseph, and it has just taken off. Now they're looking at going to prison environments. So the men keep me busy. I'll have to say that.
That's a
Well,
good thing.
yes, and that is awesome. And when you say going into the prisons, it kind of reminded me. I have a dear friend that has been part of Operation Outcry from almost the very beginning, and she takes abortion recovery into the prisons, women's prisons mainly.
Mhm.
And she's testified many times before Senate hearings, congressional hearings, that about 80% of the women that attend her abortion recovery programs in prison attribute their abortion to their downward spiral that led them in prison. I don't know if you knew that or not,
I have
but
heard that from Kevin Burke as well, and the studies that he has on that. So it makes perfect sense. And after an abortion, people go into a sort of emotional and spiritual prison, where they don't really know where the lock and key is to be able to get out, nor do they feel worthy or dignified enough
Mhm.
to step out into freedom. So it makes perfect sense that the
right.
program would be carried to a prison environment.
Yeah, and boy, they really, it's transformational, as you know, when you take someone through abortion recovery, like I've been through and Mary's been through. It's transformational.
Oh, yes,
It
yes.
it's even better than prior to your abortion, to tell you the truth, because you're saved. God's forgiven you, and you receive His grace and His mercy, and you confess that, and then you allow Him to heal you on all of the different areas that God or that abortion hurts you.
Yes.
So how do you reach the Hispanic community in particular?
Okay, and I just want to say I just got off a retreat with 16 Hispanics, and it was two couples on board. I love it when the men are there. It
Yes.
changes the chemistry of the whole retreat. And one of the people said at the end, through this retreat, I have lost the pain of the guilt and of the shame, and I now have the pain, the normal pain of the loss of my child. And I thought that was a beautiful description of normalcy, of being free of guilt and shame and coming back into this hurts. I don't have my child, and that's normal. So, yes, how do I reach Hispanics? Well, as a typical engineering brain, when I came in 13 years ago, I said, whatever we give the English speakers, we give the Spanish speakers, everybody has exactly the same. And I learned that that does not work
Oh,
because they operate completely differently. For example, just in minute things such as our English speakers work through email. And our Spanish speakers very rarely through email. They work through text. So I've had significant changes put into the ministry in how we communicate. But overall, I would have to say, first off, that the Hispanics are the ones that lead our healing. They lead our world of healing. And I'm an English speaker, and I was brought up in Mexico, so I'm a blend. But what I have learned from the Hispanics is it is a common conversation to have at home to talk about going on retreat, a common conversation to talk about healing, about mistakes, about wanting God to restore what was lost. And so those are all things that are very acceptable, not only in the home, but in every community that they're in. Whereas picture your own lives as an English speaker, as an Anglo. I don't know you, but we don't talk about those kind of things in my
no,
home. So we
no.
talk about everything else. And so I'm not sure I would feel comfortable sharing my heart in just any environment. So if you look at that difference, where a Hispanic says, free me of this pain, I don't care what it takes, just free me of this pain. And you have an English speaker saying, just exactly what are you going to do? I need to know, I need a breakdown of the agenda, the schedule. So I have to work differently with the two facets of the ministry of Rachel's Vineyard, women and men, in the two cultures, because the cultures operate differently. And so one thing I've really noticed about outreach for our Spanish speakers, and I call it lighting up a Rachel retreat, because about a month before, I light it up. And that just means I send out text messages to maybe key leadership in church or the graduates of retreat. I have over 200 graduates of retreat in my phone. and
Oh,
they are all coded by month, year, and initials. So on every retreat, I usually have between 5 and 7 Marias, which really makes my life interesting. When I say Maria and all these heads turn, I'm like, Maria M, Maria O, Maria C, Maria L. And so, and then we all have to memorize. So my full name is this, and so anyway, if you really look, every single Hispanic has Maria somewhere, and so it gets very interesting. But when I light up the fire of communication to key people, they pass it to every group that they're in, and they pass it to every clergyman that they meet. And
wow.
they have no problem saying to a clergyman, I'm always saying, you can do it in an anonymous way. No, I want to tell him to his face. I want to tell him that I need healing. And so they have a courage in that thirst and that desire of healing that we English speakers don't always have. And so they light up the fires, and it's just like seeing a burning flame move away from me in all these different directions. And they're not afraid. If I received something and I needed to pass it on, I would think maybe you would wonder why I have that. Why am I passing that on? Does that mean that I've been there? So my fear would keep me from passing that on. The Hispanics pass it on, pass it on. And they don't have any fear of someone saying, oh, does that mean you were there? So I just love that about them. It's a vulnerability that has taught me a lot in life to be more open, to open the doors of my heart without fear of judgment.
Ah, amen.
Yeah, so that's one of the main things is text versus email. I would say that it's very important for you to find ministers, pastors, and therapists that are friendly to you and to your ministry and that would allow you in. And so, for example, therapists that are willing to have the information on healing in Spanish where they can pass it out. We have 2 mental health professionals on every retreat. So I light up that communication. And for example, one reached out and said, I have 4 people ready for you. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
How'd you do that? And then the clergymen, if you have pastors that are open to this, and sometimes people are not, but if they're open to that, then I would suggest getting materials in there where people can post it. We like to use the care tabs in the bathroom
Yeah.
where they can just rip them off and take it. Or now I'm big into QR codes. Thank you, COVID.
Mhm.
So where people can just QR this and QR that and get linked in. Now they will get linked into my webpage, but they won't send me an email. They won't fill out the demographic contact form. They'll text me. So we always say in Spanish, you can text or call confidentially. I'm the only one that can see or hear those messages. I will respond to you directly. So I've also noticed in my messages to them when I say leave a message and just tell me your name. That's it. First name. That's all I need. You don't have to tell me your story. They won't do it. They
Oh,
hang up. And so I'm watching that phone, and if I see a hang up, I text back and say, are you interested in a retreat? Oh, yeah, I am. Okay, well, so there's a fear. They have got to have person to person, human to human. And that is how the Hispanic culture moves,
mm,
where we that speak English sometimes like to have those barriers and voicemails and phone calls and maybe written information or websites or filling out a demographic form. The Hispanic wants face to face.
yeah.
So getting into your churches where first off they can find contact information, but then they can talk to someone, a real human being, about it, and not a voicemail. They won't do it. But also then maybe having a representative in those churches where they can. It says in your bulletin. I feed into bulletins every month, and all across the diocese here. It's up to them if they put it in or not. I can't control them. But I always tell them, I've got a Rachel retreat in Spanish coming up. Help me reach them. So my friendly will put it in there, and the person will read it. They will try to reach me one on one, and they won't talk to me until they can get me one on one. But maybe if you had a person in your church where it could say, Susie, is your contact here? And she would love to talk to you. She's a safe, confidential place. Or here's her email, or here's her phone number where you can contact her directly. Someone that's trained in linking them into the world of healing. Then also I would suggest a conference. I recently had a conference for mental health and clergy, but it would be really good to invite all your ministers of churches
Mm,
that have ministry in Spanish. Say,
mm,
this particular one's going to be in Spanish, and have speakers come in. Invite me, I'll come. and speak on the subject where it's full of ministers. The ones that think, no, is this really necessary? I don't think so. God forgives everything, and He does. But people need more.
They
They
need
need to
healing.
be
Right.
surrounded by people who say, I get that. I understand that. I felt that.
Mm.
Versus just God forgives, be happy. So if these ministers were able to come to a conference and have someone, maybe a couple testimonials, I usually travel with my testimonials, or I have them, I have videos of them where they can come with me, and they share the story until a minister really buys into that. He's able to preach it from
Right.
the pulpit,
Right.
where people can see. We have many of our churches allow me to come in for 1 minute. No, it's 2 minutes. I'm allowed to announce what's going on, and then I have a testimonial at my side who tells his or her story in 1 minute of how it destroyed his or her life and how this healed their hearts. And you see the tears on the faces in the congregation. Now, do they come up at the end of church? No. But I get it in the bulletin the week before, and I'm in the bulletin the week after. They can find us after they've heard us.
Yes, yes, amen, amen. So I was wanting to ask, I live way out in West Texas, and
Mhm,
we have few Catholic churches in the
mhm,
area, not
mhm.
just one in our town, probably one in each town that's within a 30-minute, 45-minute drive. And I don't think any abortion recovery program has ever gone on in this area, but I know there's a need because I've talked to them. So how would we initiate that? And you, do I send you their contact information and you can send them information and resources, or how would we uh, get that ball rolling?
Well, let me ask you, are you talking about a healing retreat for those that are not Catholic?
Or no, Catholic and well, Catholic and non-Catholic, really,
Okay,
because I know a lot of Spanish speakers do attend non-Catholic, other churches as well.
okay, yeah.
So,
Well, basically, if you look on rachelsvineyard.org, I'm just a big proponent of Rachel's Vineyard. I've looked at many programs, and I think it's the absolute best. So if you look on that website, it will tell you what locations are in every state. So I haven't checked recently, but in the past we had Lubbock and Amarillo both active. I'm not sure if they are now. I know El Paso is very active. But I will say that I receive people from all over the country and world because I have people coming in from Mexico and Canada
oh,
for several reasons. Some, they don't want to be where they are known, but the Hispanics are trying to find a place where it's just in Spanish. And I'm usually saying, are you sure you're not bilingual? Because I really could use filling up this retreat in English. And they're like, no, if we think and cry and suffer our loss in Spanish, we want to heal in Spanish.
amen.
So
Mm.
sometimes it's not in every area of the country. So just in recent retreats, I brought in people from West Texas. If they're unable to get there in a vehicle, I usually suggest some buses, and we will pick them up at the bus station. So it's very, very common. I have a team member in El Paso that drives to where we are to serve. So we pull from all over. Now, if someone calls me from a particular city that already has Rachel Retreat, I will contact the leader and say you've got someone right there on your doorstep.
Right.
But if they don't have it in Spanish, then I pull from every direction. So yes, you can happily refer to me if that's what you like, but then it might be a good glance to look at rachelsvineyard.org and see if it seems, I just talked to a leader, yeah, it's not just El Paso, but there's someone out in West Texas. She was just asking me about that. So it's either Amarillo or Lubbock or somewhere out there that they do have retreats in Spanish.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So, Eileen, for people across the country that might hear this, they would do the same thing that you mentioned, go on to Rachel's Vineyard and see what's local for them, and
Right,
then see if there is if it's offered in Spanish or Hispanic, if it's particularly geared toward the Hispanic population, and there may
right.
be one, or there could get one started. Would
Right,
that?
and I think COVID did a number on a lot of retreats. We were able to stay afloat during COVID by going virtual, which was really bizarre, to do healing through a screen. And I was very resistant, thinking we can't do this. Rachel's Vineyard International said you can do it, and you need to lead it. So we did, and uh, and I was like, this is crazy. But then, when you think God can heal here and he can heal through a screen. So he has no limitations. So the
Amen.
healing, and I was complaining about it at some point, and someone in El Paso on that screen said, no, she was in New York. And she said, Eileen, if you had not done this, I would not have ever healed. And so
Mhm.
we had people from Argentina and Chile and all over the world joining into our retreats online. Thank goodness we got back on site. But God used that tool during a time when many sites went dormant. Some resurrected. So they did take a hit, many of the smaller sites. But for example, I pull a lot of people from Mississippi, it seems like, and Missouri and places like that where I know that they could find a Rachel English, but they want Rachel Spanish. So they come on buses, they come driving. So yes, that would be the first step, is to go to rachelsvineyard.org and look at all the locations, see who's active. If it's someone that you can reach easily, then go there first. If you don't see dates of retreats under that site, they're probably not active, but it's still worth reaching out to them. They may have forgotten to put their dates on. But then if they really want Spanish and it's not in that state, then they have to see how far they're willing to go. I frequently get calls from the East Coast with Spanish speakers, and I'm always trying to shoot them back in that area. I guess they hear about us, and we have the pan dulce and the mariachi music, and we
Mhm.
have we give it the flavor that they need on Sunday of retreat when we rejoice in their healing. So if they want to come, they're welcome to come, but we do suggest they try to find one close to them if possible.
Right.
Eileen, there's so much rich information. If you were going to do an invitation in Spanish to this population, what would you mind doing that for our listeners that may be Hispanic and Spanish may be their first language?
Mhm.
Lo primero que quiero decir es, ¿por qué quiere usted seguir viviendo así? Si siente el dolor de la culpa, de la pena, de la vergüenza, y quisiera sentirse diferente, a lo mejor ya se acostumbró a vivir en un charco que es familiar, ya lo conoce bien, nadie sabe su secreto, no tiene por qué decirle a nadie, pero ya se acostumbró a algo que Dios no quiso para usted. Dios quiso que usted fuera una persona libre de carga, de culpa. Si usted se anima a cambiar todo eso que tiene y aventurarse saliéndose de su charco un momentito nada más para ver si hay esperanza, si hay luz, si hay posibilidad, los invito al viñedo de Raquel. El viñedo de Raquel es para mujer y hombre que han sufrido una pérdida debido a un aborto provocado y quienes buscan sanar. Sanar heridas, sacando esa infección, limpiando la infección para que puedan volver a vivir nuevamente por dentro, sabiendo que su hijo está muy bien, está con Dios. Entonces, encontrar ese perdón que usted necesita, que Dios libremente da, que muchas veces nos cuesta recibirlo plenamente y decir, Dios me ama, entonces me siento perdonada por Dios, por otros y por mi bebé. Los invito al viñedo de Raquel.
Thank you. Thank
Amen.
you.
Amen.
Mhm.
Um, hmm.
I just want to say, because we are around the Father's Day celebration, so I just want to acknowledge that you offer your healing programs to both men and women together. And what would you say to the men out there that are hesitant to jump in to a healing program?
In which language would you like it?
Let's do this one in English, since
In
the
English.
majority of our listeners are probably English or at least bilingual.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we have forgotten you. We have forgotten you for many years. You have suffered the loss of a child. That was your child. She may have carried that child in her womb. You may have been a part of the decision. Maybe you didn't want to lose that child. Maybe you didn't know about that child. Maybe you were silent and said, it's your problem. It's not mine. There are 11 ways that could have happened. Um, but you were a part of it. And now you see her suffering, you see her considering healing, you see her moving forward. But what you think, what about me? What about me? It's not for me. Healing is not for me. It is for you. If the loss was for both of you, the healing is for both of you. And so you may have seen how it's affected you in how you interact with others. Maybe you have violence with others. Maybe there's addictions. Maybe you feel anger or you feel like a failure because you didn't protect your child. You may be feeling a lot of things, but you're feeling them in silence because you don't feel there's a place to share that. Come on ProjectJosephDallas.org. Project Joseph has a healing retreat for men, just for men, in August in English and one in September in Spanish. You will be served by a team of men that has clergy, that has mental health, that has a team of men that have been there that will say, we understand what you're feeling. And you'll be able to be free of that burden and become the man that God has created you to be. You're welcome on Rachel's Vineyard retreats as well. We need you there. We women need to see how it has hurt you to hear how yours and your feelings coming out. And then we invite you to go on to Project Joseph, or you can go there directly without going to Rachel's Vineyard, where you can receive double healing. You're heads of household. You are a man of God, and He wants to bring you back into that embrace.
Amen. That was beautiful. Mhm.
Thank
I had lost sound there for a few minutes and kind of panicked, but I'm back on, and I heard that beautiful closing. Was it something you wanted to say, Mary?
I just wanted to say that at the listening session you mentioned earlier that we had last week in New Bedford, Texas, we had some men there, and I was sitting by them as the women were testifying, and I could feel their groans. I could hear their groans and feel their compassion. So I
you.
would just say that when Eileen mentioned that we need you there, I think the women need to hear from the men that have compassion and also have regret if they were involved in the decision. So thank you,
Yes.
Eileen, very
Yes,
much.
I actually saw that on the last retreat with one of the couples. I said, I don't see any movement in the marriage. Face each other, please, and say to each other whatever you would like to say. And he said to her, on this retreat, I heard in all these stories of other women how much it's hurt them. Now I know how I have hurt you. And I have always told you I will never forgive myself for allowing the death of my child. But now I know that God, who is bigger than me, has forgiven us both, and I'm asking you to forgive me. So
Oh,
it was not a dry eye in the room,
oh,
but men need to be there. They need to see that, and we need to see them.
we
It's
need
just amazing.
You're exactly right. We need to see that each other because sometimes we're angry at each other
Oh
because
yes,
of those
yes,
decisions, and this helps bring back that compassion, that reconnection, and the rebirth in their marriage because of the
yes,
healing. And
Mhm.
it can be
yes,
better than ever before because sometimes that abortion will definitely drive a wedge between
yes.
in a marriage or in relationships. Well, gosh, Eileen, I wish I could keep on going and going because it was such a wonderful time with you and the information that you brought forth. And we just encourage all of our Spanish speakers to contact Eileen, contact the Rachel's Vineyard. There's information on below the screen
Yes,
here for you. And it's all about healing and revival, really. You
yes,
know,
yes,
and when a parent heals, the entire family will heal,
absolutely.
passes down to your children and their children because they're going to know how important it is to heal from whatever wounds that they may have.
Very
But,
true.
yeah, so time is up. Thank you, Eileen, and thank
Thank
you,
you for
Mary,
having me.
for
Thank
coming
you.
on, and thank y'all for watching More to the Story with Molly White. And we hope you stay tuned for next time. God bless you, and seek that healing. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.